Ambassador Vex, senior diplomatic envoy of the Galactic Council, was having what humans might call a day. Not a good day. Not a bad day, just a day. The kind that makes you question your career choices, your life decisions, and whether or not you should have just stayed in bed. Why, he groaned. His 4 eye stalks drooping dramatically as he addressed his assistant. Did no one warn me that the humans would be bringing their pets to the negotiation table? Kara, his Zenturian assistant, suppressed what would have been an extremely unprofessional chuckle. Sir, I believe they mentioned it in the pre-meeting notes. Pre-meeting notes? Vex blinked all 4 eyes simultaneously. Who reads those? Everyone, sir. It's standard protocol. Well, I'm not everyone. I'm the senior diplomatic envoy of the Galactic Council. Vex slumped in his hover chair, his pale blue skin shifting to a disgruntled greenish tint. And now I have to explain to the High Chancellor why I ran screaming from the Earth delegation because their emotional support animal decided my tentacle looked like a chew toy. Kara's skin rippled with barely contained amusement. The dog was quite small, sir. Size isn't everything, Kara. That furry terror had teeth. And it made this horrifying sound. What did the humans call it? Barking, sir. Yes, barking. Like some primal war cry. Vex shuddered. The memory clearly still fresh. I faced down Krezar death squads with more composure. Of course, sir. Kara handed him a data pad. Regardless, the High Chancellor expects your report on potential alliance negotiations with the humans by the end of the solar cycle. Vex groaned again, this time so dramatically that his eye stalks fully retracted into his head for a moment. The High Chancellor can stick my report right up his, Ambassador. Kara interrupted, scandalized. Filing system. Vex finished innocently. What did you think I was going to say? Before Kara could respond, the communication panel on Vex's desk chimed with an incoming transmission. The holographic display flickered to life, projecting the imposing visage of High Chancellor Drav, Supreme Leader of the Galactic Council. All 7 feet of his scaled frame loomed menacingly, his crown of bony spines quivering with barely contained impatience. Ambassador Vex, Drav rumbled, his voice like gravel being crushed under the weight of disapproval. I understand there was an incident with the humans today. Vex straightened immediately. All 4 eye stalks standing at attention, merely a cultural misunderstanding, Your Excellency. Nothing that can't be smoothed over with diplomacy and perhaps a strongly worded request for muzzles on all future quadrupedal companions. Chancellor Drav's expression remained stoic, but the spines on his head flattened slightly. Vex, I didn't appoint you as senior envoy for your ability to be traumatized by creatures that weigh less than a standard nutrient packet. With all due respect, Your Excellency, have you ever been in close proximity to a Terran dog? They're unpredictable. And they produce these wet, gelatinous substances from various orifices. Fascinating, Drav replied, not sounding fascinated at all. However, your personal comfort is secondary to the security of the Galactic Council. I need your assessment of the humans as potential allies. Are they as formidable as rumors suggest? Vex hesitated. This was the real question, wasn't it? Not about embarrassing diplomatic incidents involving small furry beasts, but about whether humans represented an opportunity or a threat. The Council had been monitoring Earth for decades, watching as the primitive species went from splitting atoms to splitting the void between stars in a historical blink. They are unusual, Your Excellency, Vex said carefully. Your technological advancement curve is unprecedented. Where most species take millennia to progress from primitive tools to interstellar travel, they've done it in less than 500 orbital cycles of their star. Concerning, Drav murmured, the spines on his head now standing fully erect, a sign of agitation among his species. Moreover, Vex continued, warming to his subject, they exhibit behavioral patterns that defy conventional xenopsychological models. They are simultaneously the most cooperative and most competitive species we've encountered. They form emotional attachments to virtually anything, including machines, inanimate objects. And yes, other species they've genetically modified to serve no purpose except companionship. And militarily? Drav prompted. That's where things get truly interesting, Your Excellency. The humans have fewer warships than any other major species in the sector. Their weapons technology is, frankly, primitive compared to our phase disruptors or the Araxian quantum torpedoes. This contradicts intelligence reports suggesting they are dangerous, Drav said, narrowing his reptilian eyes. Oh, they are dangerous, Vex said quickly. It's just not in the way we traditionally measure. You see, what makes humans formidable isn't their technology, it's their thinking. Explain. Fine. Vex leaned forward, his voice dropping despite the secure channel. The humans have a concept they call MacGyvering, named after some historical figure, I believe. It refers to solving complex problems with limited resources and simple tools. During our cultural exchange, I witnessed a human engineer repair a quantum stabilizer, a device that would take our technicians' specialized tools and hours to fix, using only adhesive material they called duct tape and a beverage container. Drav's expression remained impassive, but the subtle darkening of his scales revealed his concern. And there's more. Vex continued. They call themselves adaptable, but that's like calling a black hole somewhat attractive. They can survive in almost any environment. Cold, heat, pressure variations, conditions that would require most species extensive genetic modification or protective equipment. Humans just endure. Sometimes they complain about it. Incessantly, I might add, but they endure. You're suggesting we should fear a species because they complain efficiently and fix things with adhesives? Drav's tone was skeptical, but the spines on his head remained rigid. No, Your Excellency. I'm suggesting we should be cautious about a species that views every problem as solvable, every barrier as temporary, and every limitation as a challenge. The humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. But they don't wait for necessity. They invent solutions to problems they don't even have yet. The communication fell silent for a moment as Drav processed this information. There's something else you're not telling me, Vex, Drav finally said, his eyes narrowing further. Vex fidgeted uncomfortably. It's just a rumor, Your Excellency. Probably nothing. Speak. Well, there are whispers that the Araxians approached the humans first, offering an alliance. According to my sources, the humans turned them down. Now Drav looked genuinely surprised, his spines flaring wide. The Araxians? The humans rejected an alliance with the Araxians? No species has ever done that. As I said, probably just a rumor, Vex said hastily, though they both knew it wasn't. The Araxians were the most technologically advanced species in the known galaxy, masters of quantum mechanics and subspace manipulation. An alliance with them guaranteed security and prosperity. No one refused the Araxians. Find out if it's true, Drav ordered. And if it is, find out why. I want a full report, Vex, not just on their capabilities, but on their psychology. What drives these humans? What do they want? And most importantly, are they a threat to the Council? Yes, Your Excellency. I'll arrange another meeting immediately. Vex paused, though perhaps without the furry companion this time. After the transmission ended, Vex slumped back in his chair with a long, theatrical sigh. You didn't tell him about the whiskey incident, Kara observed. One traumatic event per report is my personal limit, Vex replied, shuddering at the memory of the burning Terran liquid they had insisted he try as part of their cultural exchange. His digestive sac had protested for days afterward. Will you be meeting with the human ambassador again? Kara asked, bringing up the schedule on her datapad. Unfortunately, yes. Their primary diplomatic representative, Ambassador Wolfe, has requested a private meeting tomorrow. Vex's skin darkened with dread. She's bringing data on their proposed alliance terms. Ambassador Wolfe is considered quite reasonable by most council species, Kara offered helpfully. Reasonable. She challenged the Vraxian delegate to something called arm wrestling during last month's summit and won. The Vraxians have actual venom sacs in their limbs, Kara. I believe that's precisely why the humans appointed her, sir. They seem to value physical capability Alongside diplomatic skills, Vex's eye stalks drooped again. Just schedule the meeting, Kara, and make sure there's a security detail nearby, preferably one with experience handling small furry terrorists. The following day, Ambassador Vex arrived at the meeting chamber early, partly out of professional courtesy, but mostly to inspect the room for any hidden canine surprises. The meeting space was neutral territory, a floating platform in high orbit around Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council's administrative center. Ambassador Wolfe will be arriving momentarily, the station's AI informed him in its smooth, emotionless voice. Wonderful, Vex muttered, pacing nervously. Has she indicated whether she's bringing any companions? Ambassador Wolfe's transport manifest lists no additional life forms, the AI replied. Vex relaxed slightly. Perhaps this meeting would be productive after all. The doors slid open with a soft pneumatic hiss, and Ambassador Janet Wolfe strode in. She was tall for a human, with dark skin, close-cropped white hair, and piercing green eyes that seemed to evaluate and categorize everything they saw. No nonsense, no pretense. Vex had to admit, reluctantly, that he respected that about her. Ambassador Vex, she greeted him, extending her hand in the human custom. Vex hesitated only briefly before extending one of his upper appendages. The first time they'd performed this ritual, he'd been terrified she'd try to consume his limb. Now he knew it was merely a symbolic gesture of non-aggression, though still uncomfortably tactile for his species' preferences. Ambassador Wolfe, he replied, trying to match her firm grip without activating his natural defense mechanism, a mild paralytic secreted through his skin when threatened. Thank you for agreeing to meet without your emotional support creature. Wolfe's lips twitched in what Vex had come to recognize as suppressed amusement. Mr. Pickles was disappointed, but I explained that some cultures aren't ready for his particular brand of diplomacy. Indeed, Vex said dryly. Perhaps in a few millennia, my species will evolve to appreciate being drooled upon by miniature predators. Wolfe actually laughed at that, a sound that always startled Vex with its volume and spontaneity. Humans were so unnecessarily expressive. Shall we get down to business? She suggested, taking a seat at the hovering conference table and activating her data tablet. By all means, Vex agreed, settling his gelatinous form into the specially designed chair that accommodated his unique physiology. I understand you have prepared terms for a potential alliance between Earth and the Galactic Council. We have, Wolfe confirmed, her expression turning serious. But before I share them, I think it's important that we address the nebulan in the room. Vex blinked in confusion. I don't believe there are any gaseous entities present. It's a figure of speech, Ambassador. It means we need to discuss an obvious issue we've been avoiding. Ah, Vex said, making a mental note to update his human idiom database. And what issue might that be? Wolfe leaned forward, her green eyes intent. The fact that the Galactic Council is terrified of humanity. Vex felt his skin involuntarily flush a bright, alarmed yellow. That's a rather presumptuous statement, Ambassador. Is it? Wolfe raised an eyebrow. Your surveillance ships have been monitoring our system for decades. Your intelligence agencies have infiltrated our global networks. You've even attempted to restrict our trade with other species through a series of conveniently timed regulatory changes, standard protocol for emerging spacefaring civilizations. Vex protested, though his skin was now cycling through alarmed color patterns he couldn't control. No, Wolfe said simply. It's not. We've done our homework, Ambassador. The Zentari were granted full trade rights within a decade of achieving FTL capability. The Pruxi were invited to join the Council before they even established their first off-world colony. She slid her tablet across the table, displaying a series of comparative analyses that made Vex's eye stalks twitch nervously. So I'll ask directly, Wolfe continued, her voice level but intense. Why is the Council so afraid of us? We've broken no galactic laws. We've initiated no conflicts. We've respected all territorial boundaries. And yet, you treat us like we're carrying some contagious disease. Vex felt trapped. Chancellor Drav had specifically instructed him to assess the humans without revealing the Council's concerns. But sitting across from Ambassador Wolfe, with her unsettling green eyes boring into him. He found himself doing something unprecedented in his diplomatic career. He decided to tell the truth. Because, Vex said slowly, you terrify us. Ambassador Wolfe's expression didn't change, but Vex noticed her posture shift slightly. Humans had such subtle body language cues. Another reason they were so unnervingly unpredictable. Terrify you? She repeated, her voice carefully neutral. That's an interesting admission from a representative of the most powerful political entity in this sector of the galaxy. Vex's skin rippled with nervous energy. The Council has existed for 12,000 years, Ambassador Wolfe. In that time, we've encountered over 300 sentient species across 9 galactic sectors. We've developed very accurate models for predicting how civilizations evolve, both technologically and sociologically. And we don't fit your models, Wolfe stated rather than asked. You break them completely, Vex admitted. Most species follow predictable patterns. They develop agriculture, then industry, then information technology, then space travel. Each stage takes roughly similar timeframes across different biological types, but humans. His eye stalks waved in agitation. You went from your first powered flight to landing on your moon in 66 years. 66. The Zentari took 800 years to accomplish the same feat, Wolfe shrugged. We're quick learners. It's not just your learning speed, Vex continued, warming to his subject now that the diplomatic pretense had been dropped. It's your psychological profile as a species. You're paradoxical, in ways that make the Council deeply uncomfortable. How so? You're simultaneously the most cooperative and most competitive species we've ever encountered. You form bonds across your arbitrary national borders for common goals, then turn around and compete viciously over trivial matters. You'll sacrifice yourselves to save strangers. Then wage wars over abstract concepts like economic systems or belief structures. Wolfe nodded thoughtfully. I can see how that might be confusing from an outside perspective. Confusing? It's terrifying, Vex exclaimed, his color shifting to an anxious purple. The Araxians are predictably expansionist, the Vraxians are predictably isolationist, but humans. You could go either way, and that unpredictability makes you dangerous. Is that why the Council has been blocking our applications for alliance status? Wolfe asked, leaning back in her chair. Because we're unpredictable? Vex hesitated, then nodded. Partially, but there's more. I'm listening. The Council's xenopsychologists have a theory about human evolution, Vex said, lowering his voice despite the secure room. They believe your species developed in an environment of such extreme competition and constant threat that it fundamentally altered your neural pathways. Earth can be harsh, but… No, Ambassador, you misunderstand. Not harsh compared to your own world, harsh compared to every known homeworld that's produced sentient life. Vex tapped his datapad, bringing up a comparative analysis. Most intelligent species evolve on worlds with stable climates, limited predator threats, and abundant resources, conditions conducive to the development of higher reasoning. Wolfe frowned. That doesn't sound like Earth. Precisely. Your world experienced 5 major extinction events before your species even evolved. You developed intelligence while surrounded by apex predators. Your planetary weather systems are violently unstable. Your tectonic activity is off the charts compared to most habitable worlds. So we had a rough start, Wolfe said with another shrug. What does this have to do with an alliance? Vex's voice dropped even lower. The Council believes these conditions created a species hardwired for survival at all costs, a species that treats every obstacle as a challenge to overcome rather than a natural limitation to respect. Do you know what your Captain Harrison said when we explained that our scientists had proven faster-than-light travel beyond Factor 7 was theoretically impossible? Wolfe's lips twitched. Let me guess, hold my beer? His exact words, Vex confirmed. Eye stalks quivering with remembered alarm. 3 months later, your ships were traveling at Factor 9. Innovation isn't a threat, Ambassador, but what drives that innovation? That's what frightens the Council. Most species innovate for efficiency, for comfort, for status. Humans innovate because someone told them they couldn't do something. Vex leaned forward. Do you know what really happened on Proxima Centauri B? Wolfe's face became perfectly still. That was an accidental terraforming mishap. We've paid reparations to the affected species. The Council has classified recordings. Ambassador, we know it wasn't an accident. Your scientists were told the atmosphere couldn't be modified to human breathable standards without a 1,000-year process, so they decided to prove it could be done in 10 years, and they succeeded, at the cost of exterminating 90% of the native microbial life. That was an isolated incident by a rogue research team, Wolfe said, her voice hardening. They were prosecuted under our own laws, but it exemplifies what we fear most about humans. Vex countered. Your inability to accept limitations. Your cultural heroes are those who defy odds, break rules, and push boundaries. The rest of the galactic community views such behavior as dangerous and destabilizing. Wolfe was silent for a long moment, studying Vex with those unsettling green eyes. Is that why the Council sent the Kryzar to attack our Ganymede research station? She finally asked, her voice deadly quiet. Vex froze, his skin blanching to a pale, shocked white. I don't know what you're talking about. Bear. Male. Don't insult my intelligence, Ambassador. Wolfe's voice remained quiet, but there was steel beneath it now. We recovered fragments of Kryzar technology. We know they don't act without Council authorization. That's classified information, Vex stammered, his diplomatic training failing him completely. Was it a test? To see how we'd respond to aggression? Wolfe pressed. Or was it an attempt to slow our quantum entanglement research? Vex's eye stalks drooped in defeat. There was no point denying it now. Both, he admitted. The Council was concerned about how quickly you were advancing in that field. 27 people died in that attack, Wolfe said, each word precise and cutting. It wasn't supposed to be lethal. Vex protested weakly. Just a warning. A demonstration of what? Your power? Your authority? Wolfe leaned forward, her expression intense but controlled. Let me tell you what it demonstrated instead, Ambassador. It showed us exactly what we're dealing with. She stood up, a move so sudden that Vex flinched backward instinctively. Ambassador Wolfe, Here are our terms for alliance, she interrupted, placing a small data crystal on the table. They're non-negotiable. You have 48 hours to present them to the Council, non-negotiable. Vex blinked rapidly in confusion. That's not how diplomatic negotiations work. This isn't a negotiation anymore, Wolfe said coolly. It's an ultimatum. The Council doesn't respond well to threats, Ambassador. It's not a threat. It's a reality check. Wolfe's voice softened slightly. You've just admitted that your government authorized an attack on our people because you were afraid of our progress. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? What are you planning? Vex asked, genuine fear coloring his voice. Nothing, Wolfe said simply. That's what terrifies you the most, isn't it? It's not knowing what we'll do next. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, an ambassador? The Araxians didn't offer us an alliance. We offered them one. And they accepted. Her smile was thin. 3 days ago. The door slid shut behind her, leaving Vex alone with the data crystal and the horrifying implications of what she'd just revealed. They did what? High Chancellor Drav's voice boomed through the secure communication channel, his spines fully extended in alarm. Formed an alliance with the Araxians, Vex repeated, his skin a sickly shade of green from stress. I've confirmed it through multiple sources. The treaty was signed 3 standard days ago. This is unprecedented, Drav growled, pacing back and forth in the holographic projection. The Araxians have maintained neutrality for millennia. Why would they suddenly ally with an upstart species like the humans? I've reviewed the terms of their agreement, Vex said, pulling up the data on his pad. The humans are offering something revolutionary. A new approach to quantum entanglement that allegedly solves the Heisenberg compensation problem. Impossible. Drav scoffed. Our best scientists have worked on that problem for centuries, as have the Araxians, Vex pointed out. Yet according to my sources, the humans solved it in less than a decade. Drav's movements became more agitated. If this technology is verified, it would revolutionize everything from communications to weapon systems. Precisely why the Araxians couldn't resist, Vex agreed. But there's more, Your Excellency. The terms of their alliance include a mutual defense pact. You mean, yes. Any aggression against human interests would trigger an Araxian military response. Drav fell silent, the implications sinking in. The Araxian fleet was the most technologically advanced in known space. Their weapons systems were generations ahead of even the Council's best defenses. And what of these non-negotiable terms Ambassador Wolfe presented to you? Drav finally asked. Vex activated the data crystal, projecting its contents into the space between them. They're surprisingly reasonable, Your Excellency. The humans want formal recognition as a full council member, unrestricted trade rights, and a joint scientific exchange program. That's all. There's one more condition, Vex added hesitantly. They want a formal apology for the Ganymede incident, with reparations paid to the families of those killed. Drav's spines flattened against his head. They know it was us. They have proof, Your Excellency. And if we refuse their terms? Vex hesitated. Ambassador Wolfe didn't specify, but given their new alliance with the Araxians, we need time, Drav decided. Stall them. Tell them the Council needs to deliberate. With respect, Your Excellency. I don't think that's wise, Vex said, surprising himself with his boldness. The 48-hour deadline expires in 6 hours. If we miss it, I believe the humans will take it as a rejection. You sound frightened, Ambassador, Drav observed coldly. I am frightened, Vex admitted, but not of human weapons or even their Araxian allies. I'm frightened of what happens when you corner a species evolved to overcome any obstacle, to break any barrier, to defy any limitation. The humans have a saying, Your Excellency, necessity is the mother of invention. We've just made an alliance with them very necessary. Drav was silent for a long moment, his reptilian features unreadable. You recommend we accept their terms? I do, even though it makes them equals on the Council, even though it legitimizes their reckless approach to technological advancement. Better to have them inside our system than outside it, Vex argued. If they're Council members, we can at least attempt to moderate their more extreme tendencies through legal frameworks. Drav's eyes narrowed. And you believe they'll abide by our laws? These humans who, by your own assessment, view rules as challenges to be overcome? Not all of them. No, Vex conceded. But enough of them understand the value of stability and cooperation. Ambassador Wolfe, for all her intimidation tactics, genuinely wants peace. I believe that. That, your belief is noted, Ambassador, Drav said coldly, but the decision rests with the full Council. 5 hours later, Vex found himself back in the neutral meeting chamber, waiting anxiously for Ambassador Wolfe. The Council had debated fiercely, with many voices calling for rejection of the human terms. In the end, pragmatism had prevailed, but only barely, and with significant modifications to the humans' demands. When the door slid open, Vex was surprised to see not just Ambassador Wolfe, but a tall, silver-skinned Araxian diplomat accompanying her. Ambassador Trill was legendary in diplomatic circles, ancient, brilliant, and notoriously difficult to read. Ambassador Vex, Wolfe greeted him with a polite nod. I believe you know Ambassador Trill of the Araxian Collective. By reputation only, Vex said, bowing deeply in the Araxian custom. It is an honor. Trill inclined his elongated head slightly, silver eyes blinking slowly. The honor is mutual, Ambassador Vex. Your handling of the Pruxy succession crisis was masterful. Under different circumstances, such praise from an Araxian would have made Vex's career. Today it only heightened his anxiety. I have the Council's response to your terms, Ambassador Wolfe, Vex said, activating his datapad. And? Wolfe prompted when he hesitated. The Council accepts your terms, with modifications. Vex braced himself for her reaction. We will grant Earth full Council membership and trade rights. We will establish the scientific exchange program. And we will acknowledge the unfortunate incident at Ganymede with appropriate reparations. But? Wolfe's eyes narrowed. But formal council membership will come with an oversight period of 50 standard years, during which all human technological innovations must be reviewed by a council committee before implementation. Vex expected outrage, perhaps even threats. Instead, Wolfe exchanged a glance with Trill, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "We anticipated this response," Wolfe said calmly, "and were prepared to accept the oversight period, with one condition of our own." "Which is?" Vex asked nervously. "The Oversight Committee must include equal representation from Earth, the Council, and the Araxian Collective." Vex blinked in surprise. "That's actually quite reasonable. We're not the monsters you think we are, Ambassador," Wolfe said with a hint of amusement. "We understand the fear our rapid advancement causes. We even understand why the Council authorized the Ganymede attack, though we don't condone it, if I may." "Bay," Trill interjected, his melodious voice carrying the weight of millennia of diplomatic experience. "What the Council fails to grasp about humans is that their seemingly reckless pursuit of advancement comes with an equally powerful capacity for restraint, so when they choose to exercise it." "Exactly," Wolfe agreed. "We push boundaries, yes, but we also recognize the need for those boundaries. The difference is that we want them to be reasonable, based on genuine risks, not on fear and traditional limitations." Vex looked between the two of them, his diplomatic instincts telling him something significant was happening, something beyond a simple alliance negotiation. "There's more to this partnership between your species than technology exchange, isn't there?" he asked slowly. Trill's silver lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Perceptive, Ambassador Vex. Yes, there is more. The Araxians have existed for over 20,000 years. In that time, we've achieved technological marvels, but also a certain stagnation. Our society values stability above all. We no longer take risks. And we take too many," Wolfe added. "Our history is littered with technological disasters born of moving too quickly, pushing too hard." Understanding dawned on Vex. "You balance each other." "Precisely," Trill confirmed. "The humans challenge our complacency. We temper their recklessness. Together, we believe we can advance more safely and effectively than either species could alone. And we want the Council to be part of this new approach," Wolfe said earnestly, "not as adversaries, but as partners." Vex felt something he hadn't expected: hope. Perhaps the humans weren't the existential threat the Council had feared. Perhaps they were simply different, evolved under conditions that required a different approach to survival and advancement. "I believe the Council will accept your counter-proposal," Vex said, his skin lightening to a more optimistic blue. "And personally, I look forward to seeing what comes of this unique collaboration." Wolfe extended her hand, and this time Vex took it without hesitation. "To new beginnings, Ambassador." "To new beginnings," Vex agreed. "Though I must insist that Mr. Pickles remains excluded from all formal diplomatic functions." And Wolfe laughed, that startlingly loud human expression of amusement that Vex was starting to find less alarming. "No promises, Ambassador. No promises at all." 6 months later, Vex stood on the observation deck of the Council's Grand Assembly Hall, watching as the formal induction ceremony for Earth concluded below. Ambassador Wolfe, resplendent in human diplomatic attire, had just signed the final protocols, making humanity the 312th species to join the Galactic Council. "A historic day," Kara commented, standing beside him. "Indeed," Vex agreed. "Though I still have my reservations. About the humans, they got their influence," Vex clarified. "Already they're proposing changes to Council procedures that have remained unchanged for millennia. Their representatives ask questions no one has thought to ask in generations." "Is that necessarily bad?" Kara asked. Vex considered the question seriously. "No," he finally admitted. "Perhaps it isn't. The Araxians certainly don't think so. Their cultural exchange programs with Earth are oversubscribed 3 years in advance. I've applied for one myself," Kara admitted, her skin flushing with excitement. "Their art forms are fascinating, especially something called jazz music." Vex looked at her in surprise. "You, my steady, reliable assistant?" "Even steady, reliable assistants can appreciate new experiences, sir. Below them, The ceremony concluded with thunderous applause as representatives from 300 species welcomed Earth into their ranks. Chancellor Drav, who had initially opposed the alliance so vehemently, now stood with Ambassador Wolfe, their differences at least publicly reconciled. "Do you know what convinced the Council in the end?" Vex asked Kara. "Why they ultimately agreed to the alliance despite their fears?" "The Araxian support was significant," Kara suggested. "That was part of it," Vex agreed. "But the deciding factor was something Ambassador Wolfe said during the final deliberations. She told them, 'You fear us because we're different, but the greatest strength of any ecosystem is its diversity. What threatens you today may save you tomorrow.'" He gazed down at the celebrating delegates, his four eyes taking in the dizzying variety of biological forms, from crystalline Thexians to gaseous void dwellers to the comparatively ordinary-looking humans. "Perhaps she's right," Vex mused. "Perhaps what we need isn't more stability, but the right kind of disruption." "A rather revolutionary thought for a council diplomat," Kara observed with amusement. "What can I say?" Vex's skin rippled with wry humor. "The humans are rubbing off on me. Next thing you know, I'll be voluntarily approaching their furry companions." "I wouldn't go that far, sir." "Neither would I, Kara," Vex said with feeling. "Neither would I." As the celebration continued below, a small alert chimed on Vex's personal communicator. It was a message from Ambassador Wolfe. "Remember that technology we couldn't possibly develop within your lifetimes. We did it in 6 months. Oversight Committee meeting tomorrow. Bring coffee. You'll need it." Vex stared at the message, his skin cycling through a rainbow of emotions before settling on a resigned lavender. Humans. They were going to be the death of him, or perhaps, just perhaps, they would be the making of the galaxy. Only time would tell. And if there was one thing humans had taught him, it was that the future was far less predictable and far more interesting than anyone had previously believed.